Letter number 26 is, as in letter 25 was a very mystical idea, so is this one. Very mystical. Quoting from the Zohar, Raya Mehemna, Parshas Nosai. Hamaskilim kezoyahar harakia. And the wise shall shine like the radiance of the firmament. With your works, work of yours, of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the book of the Zohar, from the radiance of Ima Ilah, higher mother, which is the higher level of tshuva. For those who will study this work, no trial is needed. And now there's no difficulties will they go through. Is the quoting from the Zohar. That's El Today begins this, was quoting from the Zohar. So he explains in the Zohar, because eventually the Jewish people will taste the tree of life, which is the book of the Zohar. They will go out of exile with it in mercy, because they will fulfill what the verse says in Deuteronomy. God alone will lead them, and there will be no strange God with them. He continues the Zohar, and that's the tree of life. The tree of knowledge, on the other hand, of good and evil, which is about the prohibitions, permission, purity, will no longer dominate the Jewish people. And the sustenance that they derive will come from the tree of life. And in the tree of life, there's no problematic query, because a problem emanates from the side of evil. There's no controversy when it comes from the side of life. There is no impurity. As it's written in Zechariah, and the spirit of impurity I shall remove from the earth. Therefore, the Torah scholars in that time, when they will be sustained by the tree of life, right, will not be sustained by illiterate people that, that they back in the day they used to study, and they were, and others took care of, helped and take care of their physical needs. But they will get it from the side of good, of pure, kosher, and permitted. They won't be sustained by the mixed multitude. Why? Because the tree of good and evil will no longer dominate the world. And the dominance will come in the times of Mashiach through the tree of life. And it will suppress the tree of good of evil and good and evil. And therefore, excuse me. Hello? Yes, if you can bring it downstairs. Sorry. So, according, so again, the tree of life will subjugate the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and therefore, that what gives the scholars their vitality, as opposed to those who are illiterate. They will still be connected to the prohibited and permitted, impure and pure. In other words, for them, as the Talmud says, that there will be no difference between the times of Mashiach and today's times accept that the Jewish people will be released from servitude from the nations. In other words, because they illiterate, meaning here that they didn't taste from the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, right? They will still need the Mishnah, the law, in order to guide them in their lives. That's the end of the quotation of the Zohar. So the Alter Rebbe says, at first glance, it seems that only the Zohar, and you can say maybe together with that, other mystical teachings, are an expression of the tree of life. Whereas the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Gemara are not. They're because they speak about kosher, not kosher, valid, invalid, pure, impure, permissible, not permissible, is an expression of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The Alter Rebbe says that contradicts the very simple meaning of Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. That this is the tree of life that we say, Torah scroll is lifted up. We say Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. This is the tree of life, and those who hold fast to it. It's not only speaking about the book of Zohar, it's in reference to the Torah, the entire Torah. Especially that the Zohar was still concealed in their days. That wisdom of Kabbalah was hidden. Only a select few were learning the Zohar. And even then, they didn't learn it publicly. They learned it privately. As a matter of fact, the Arizal says that it's only in recent times, and he was in the 1500s, and the Zohar was written in the 2nd century. He says the Arizal that they were permitted and obligated to reveal this wisdom, but it was not in previous generations. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai states in the Zohar himself that this Kabbalah was only granted to himself and to a few of his associates. So from a superficial reading, you might think that the Zohar is saying that only the mystical teachings is the tree of life and the other areas of Torah is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Can't be. Especially that we know that even learning the laws of ritual prohibition and permission and civil laws of litigation and monetary matters would not override the obligation of prayer, which is based on Kabbalah. But we see that in the Talmud, that those who have the sole occupation of studying Torah, that they don't interrupt for prayer. In other words, the study of Talmud was even greater than prayer, which prayer is based on Kabbalah. Furthermore, to prove this point, the Shimon Bar Yochai himself was 13 years in a cave, hiding with his son from the Romans. They, for sure, all what they did the whole time was study. The whole time they studied. To study the Zohar would take them 2-3 months to finish it. And they didn't need to go over it again and again. So what did they do the rest of the time? They were studying Talmud. As the Gemara says, that with every problematic query that Reb Pinchas ben Yair gave, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai gave 24 solutions. So there's no question. The study of the Mishnah is much more lengthy, especially because it's got, back and forth questions and answers, that they for sure spent most of their time studying Talmud and not Kabbalah, not Zohar. And moreover, our sages say that since the temple has been destroyed, The Holy One, blessed be He, only has 4 cubits of, where is He found? In 4 cubits, not of Kabbalah, but Halacha, Jewish law. So we can't say, in conclusion, and the Alter Rebbe in tomorrow's class will bring even more proofs. I mean, you can't say that when we speak about, halachic Torah teachings, that it is an expression or comes from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because after all, it is speaking about, permissible, not permissible, pure, impure, and the like. No, it is an expression of the tree of life. Just as Kabbalah, mystical teachings, Hasidus, is an expression of the tree of life. Ooh, powerful teachings over here. We're in the middle of a thought, but when we speak about the tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil, so tree of knowledge of good and evil is, as was in the Garden of Eden, and it is after an expression of klipa, of a shell that covers over on the holiness, on the light of God. So what a person might make a mistake to think that when you're discussing areas in Torah that are, discussions, debates, and so on in Jewish law, that might be an expression of klipa. He says, no, it's not. It's an expression of the tree of life, which is an expression of godliness itself. Not just an admixture, but of godliness itself. But this is the discussion over here that's going to go deeper in the days to come to give us an understanding of the. Sorry. Hello. Thank you very much. Deeper expression of Torah teachings and the Torah that we're learning. Okay, we're learning Chassidus, but to appreciate the distinctions that there are. We're in the middle, or not in the middle, we're in the very beginning. And, some of the questions and the thoughts might be things that we're going to deal with later. And the truth is, we're going to continue this discussion tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to continue this discussion. I have an unveiling that I have to go to, so I can't continue it now, unfortunately. My regret. But, all right. All right, folks, there are questions here. We will deal with them, God willing. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuch and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day. A good